available to the public on Broomfield's YouTube channel. Commission members are attending this meeting remotely. Public participation is encouraged through the webinar by calling 877-853-5247. The webinar ID is 922-3528-9756. Public comment will be taken on each agenda item following staff presentations. Callers can press *9 to raise their hand to indicate a desire to speak on an item, or a webinar participant can use the raise hand function. All public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Pursuant to 2-70-30 Broomfield Municipal Code, no elected official or member of any city board, authority, or commission may appear before the Planning and Zoning Commission when it's conducting a quasi-judicial proceeding. We will now move to the roll call. The Planning and Zoning Commission meeting is called to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Parkman, Hastings,
Present.
Silvers,
Here.
Carius,
Here.
Franz,
Here.
Lamont, Hart,
Here.
Mickelson.
Here.
We do have a quorum present. In an effort to keep order for tonight's meeting, we will call on each member of the commission for an opportunity to comment at the conclusion of staff presentations or updates. If making a motion or a second, we ask commissioners to use the raise hand function. Commissioners are asked to mute their microphones when not speaking. Review and approval of the minutes. We will begin with commissioners' review and approval of this evening's agenda. Commissioners may revise the order of the business for the meeting. Does any other member of the commission have any comments or questions regarding the agenda? And I see no raised hands, so we will move on. Petitions and communications. Are there any petitions and communications, Ms. Burton-Zetti?
Thank you. I don't have anything for you this evening.
Okay, thank you. Commission's consideration of the minutes from February 8th, 2021 is next. The commission has received copies of the minutes of the February 8th, 2021 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting in their packets. Does any member of the Planning and Zoning Commission have any corrections or additions to these minutes? I don't see any hands raised. If none, we will move on. Is there a motion to approve? Commissioner Franz.
Move to approve the minutes.
Okay, I have a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Hart.
Second motion.
Okay, I have a proper motion and a second. Are there any discussion? Being none, will the secretary please call the roll?
Mickelson,
Approved.
Franz,
Yes.
Hastings,
Yes.
Silvers,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Carius,
Yes.
So that passes 6-0. So that's unanimous for tonight. So those are stand approved. First on the item of the commission business is for the Mid-Cities Filing Number 1, Lot 2, Planned Unit Development Amendment and Site Development Plan. And it's 5A Mid-Cities Filing Number 1, Plan Unit Lot 2, Planned Unit Development Amendment and Site Development Plan, Resolution PZ 2021-5. I will declare the public hearing open. Commissioners has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff, Ms. Hammer, to please read and summarize.
Good evening, Commissioners. Judy Hammer, representing Planning Division. Next slide, please. The applicant, Pivot Development Company, is requesting consideration of amendment to the Planned Unit Development Plan to Mid-Cities and a site development plan to capture a 5-story, 254-unit Class A apartment building. The PUD amendment will permit an increase in the total number of residential units to 270, increase the maximum unit density from 50 dwelling units per acre to 85, and would establish standalone multifamily as an allowable use within this planning area versus what is currently permitted, which is mixed-use transit-oriented development. Next slide, please. The property is located at 460 Flatiron Boulevard at the southwest intersection of Interlochen Loop and Flatiron Boulevard and identified as Tract 6 per the Mid-Cities PUD. The Town Place Suites by Marriott is immediately to the west, and Camden Interlochen Apartments are to the south. One of the 2 lots to the north of the site is undeveloped, while the second has a hotel. The property to the northwest of the Town Place Suites lot is approved for a hotel, which may be built in the future. Next slide, please. The land use designation for the site is mixed use commercial. The proposed multifamily residential use, when taken into consideration with the surrounding uses, is consistent with the intended mixed use commercial designation. Next slide, please. As outlined earlier, the proposed amendment to the PUD affects Tract 6, the subject site. It establishes the standalone multifamily residential use versus mixed-use transit-oriented development, which is its current designation per the PUD. The current mixed use permits uses such as hotels, restaurants, recreation and fitness facilities, offices, retail services, corporate luxury apartments, and condos over commercial and other uses. This PUD amendment also increases the maximum dwelling units per acre from 50 dwelling units per acre to 85, with a net increase of 25 units per dwelling acre or per dwelling unit per acre, and increases the total number of residential units to 270. Currently, there are approximately 2 residential units within the Mid-Cities PUD that may be constructed. Next slide, please. The site development plan captures a 5-story Class A 254-unit apartment complex that wraps around a 5-story parking garage with 243 parking spaces and 20 bicycle spaces interspersed on each floor. Amenities include a sky lounge, fitness center, club room, pool courtyard, and a dog park and dog wash. The buildings are oriented to maximize frontage along the public roadways, providing for an upscale urban feel. The amenity space is located at the primary access at the northern elevation, with an elevated architecturally interesting corner entrance at the Interlochen and Flatiron intersection. The site includes 28.3% open area below the minimum requirement of 40%. The applicant has included this as a variance request and will update the site plan accordingly prior to the City Council hearing that is scheduled for March 16th. Next slide, please. There are 2 access points off Flatiron Boulevard, a right in and right out from the parking garage, approximately midway between the apartment units along the northern elevation, and a second full access movement drive that is shared by the Town Place Suites to the west. No right-of-way improvements are required for this development on the public streets. On-site parking meets the requirements of the Broomfield Municipal Code. In addition, the applicant is providing the secured parking spaces throughout the parking garage. The following slides show the architecture of the building. If you could show the next slide, please. This is a view looking southwest from the Interlochen Loop and Flatiron Boulevard intersection. The building is 5 stories and features a flat roof with key architectural features creating horizontal and vertical articulation. The building colors and materials include stone and stucco finishes at the primary elevations with wood. 5 levels of covered parking are screened to avoid undesired views. So as you can see from this elevation, you can't see the parking garage. The next slide shows views looking southeast along the Flatiron Boulevard intersection. And you can see the entrance there, the right out entrance, just a little bit to the left of the screen. Next slide, please. Landscaping is concentrated around the perimeter of the complex, up next to the building, and within the pool courtyard with shade trees in the dog park, and along the park island that is between the shared parking on the left side of the screen, or shared drive on the left side of the screen. There is limited landscaping at the northeast corner due to a FRICO-held easement that precludes plantings with deep root systems. Outdoor furniture will be placed around the pool courtyard. as you can see by this rendering. Next slide, please. The project will include a monument sign at the corner entrance. It's kind of built into the stairs. And signs will be reviewed as a separate sign permit application to be consistent with the Broomfield municipal count requirements and the PUD plan design criteria for all signage to be compatible with building architecture. The applicant is providing $817,364 in cash in lieu based on a PLD obligation for 11.66 acres. The 254 unit apartment complex is expected to generate 486 persons at build out. The applicant is also providing a full cash in lieu payment of $1,468,800 for the development meeting the inclusionary housing ordinance requirements. The Housing Advisory Committee has agreed to this proposal by the developer. Next slide, please. During the concept meeting, which is incorrectly noted as July 7, 2019, it was actually July 7, 2020. I apologize for that error. Members of the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council indicated support of the proposal. They noted the importance of increasing density near the Flatirons Mall and restaurants, retail and businesses that are along Colton Road and the Flatiron Marketplace. The applicants were encouraged to finalize the design of the parking garage to accommodate the adequate number of spaces. After the concept meeting, the applicant completed a parking requirement analysis in conjunction with designing the parking garage. Based on careful design, the amount of parking spaces provided meets the requirements of the Broomfield Municipal Code. Next slide, please. The City and County of Broomfield standard public notice requirements have been met for this case. Next slide, please. In conclusion, the PUD amendment allows for standalone multifamily and includes an increase of 270 units, residential units, increasing the dwelling units per acre from 50 to 80. The total percentage of property utilized for residential uses within the PUD remains consistent with the comprehensive plan use designation of mixed-use commercial. Variance is to allow for a decrease of the 75-foot setback along interlocking loop to 35 feet. Traffic engineering indicated acceptance of the reduced setback, indicating that it will not affect future road widening improvements along interlocking loop. Variance to allow for a 4.2-foot encroachment into the 20-foot side yard setback for the cantilevered roof. The Architectural Control Committee indicated acceptance of the reduced side yard setback. And variance to allow for 9 feet by 18 feet versus 9 feet by 19 feet size parking stalls. An allowance for 24-foot, 6.5-inch wide drive aisles versus the standard 25-foot drive aisles. Traffic engineering and the North Metro Fire District indicated acceptance of the reduced stall lengths and drive aisle widths inside the parking garage. Variance to allow for a 28.3% open area versus the requirement of 40% for residential uses. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. This concludes staff summary presentation. The applicant's team are available to make a brief presentation and to answer any additional questions you may have.
That was nicely done. It was pretty detailed. Do you want to enter that into the record?
Thank you.
Anna, does she need to enter that into the record?
I think by you saying that, it enters into the record.
Good. The applicant's presentation is now in order. Is the applicant or applicant's representative present? And if so, do you wish to be heard? Please identify yourself, give us your address, and anyone speaking, make sure they give us their address and where they work. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Matt Hager. I am the president of Pivot Development Company. Our office is based in Carmel, Indiana. With us this evening is Kenan Reverts with Kimley Horn and Chris Helpert with Kimley Horn, as well as Evan Boderoff with Dwell Design Studio and Danielle Kennington of Dwell Design Studio. Appreciate
Welcome.
everyone's time this evening to discuss our project. As Judy had mentioned through her presentation, we have spent a lot of time with many city officials working through our project, whether it was the HAC, the land dedication, zoning, planning to work on our project. We have already been through much of the process, concept review or SDP process. And as Judy mentioned, this is a 254 unit apartment complex that's 5 stories. It wraps a 424 parking space garage. That garage does include many sustainable items, as well as the building, which I will mention here in just a moment. In addition to that, we are really fortunate to have worked through this process. As a city, Broomfield's been very efficient and effective during COVID to work with us as I've pushed our team to work through this pandemic on this project. The walkability of this project is extremely exciting. The ability to get down to the marketplace for residents, to walk within the park, to walk down to the mall, to be able to not just be a transient oriented type project that's cars. Broomfield and the Front Range is very active outdoor lifestyle, and being able to walk to certain services is a huge benefit to these type of projects. Many residents these days want to be either close to work or close to their amenities. This site actually has both if they work in Interlochen, or quite frankly, if they work in Boulder or even close in some parts of Denver. The ability to have your amenities and where you work close to you is a huge driver for residents anywhere, but especially in Broomfield and certain parts of Colorado. Our project also includes studios, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. When we initially discussed our project with you on the concept review, one member had mentioned to us their concern about parking. At that time, we had 261 apartments and we had 405 parking spaces. We took a really hard look at this to be able to really identify, to make sure we park this efficiently. I will tell you that our parking now is, as I mentioned, 423 spaces for 254. That is a 1.67 parking ratio. When we first talked to you guys, we were at a 1.54 parking ratio. And most of these buildings that are built like this across the United States, including one called Westminster Row, right down the street, about 10 minutes or so. It's a 5-story wrap and its parking ratio is 1.44. Another project that's under construction right now, which happens to be being done by our contractor that will be building this, is building a project in Boulder, very much like this property, and their parking ratio is 1.39. So I wanted to mention, we really listened to you about the parking, and what we really tried to do is have more of a suburban type parking ratio, even though we have a urban suburban building in a suburban location. Obviously it's a private garage. Our residents are going to be extremely, we're going to have to make sure we offer enough to them. In addition to that, some of the sustainability of this building, every apartment is going to be a smart apartment. And the reason for that is it's going to be able to reduce energy costs for all our residents. They're going to be able to control their heating and their cooling, their lighting within their apartments, even if they're not at home, by a simple app on their phone that will be monitored not only for them, but also through our management office. Our entire building will be securitized by systems on the outside and the inside of the garage that you will not be able to get into our building unless you have a code. It sees your face from face recognition or video conferencing with the actual management office. It's a security feature in these type of buildings, especially in a technology area like Interlochen. We wanted to make sure that our residents had those type of features. We are still investigating and have the plans to put solar on most of the roof of this building. We've been very cautious, and our team has actually talked to other businesses in the Broomfield area about creating a very solid co-working space, because everything that's happened in the world over the last year about the comfortability, the health environment, about working from home or working from home half the time, we wanted to offer those to our residents. So we've worked through those things as well. Garage has bike parking. We have a bike storage room. Every level of the garage has ski storage. So we're offering many sustainable things within this project outside of it just being units for people to live in. This is a place that we want everyone to call home, and their American dream is to live in a place like this and to live in an area like Broomfield. That's really been our focus. And our team has been very fortunate with all the members of Broomfield, whether it's been Judy and Anna and their teams, whether it's been the engineering department, Cheryl and the HAC to work through the process of this project. And I don't have anything else to offer. I think Danielle with our team can answer any questions architecturally, or I can answer any other questions about the building that I mentioned regarding that. Kanan, I believe you have the slides or control of the slides maybe. If you want to kind of flow through a little bit to show a little bit of the different architecture than what was in Judy's packet, to show a little updated of the renderings.
And Kenny, can you state your name and address if you're going to present that? Did we lose you?
Not sure.
Daniel, you've got your hand up, but I don't see you. Looks like you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
Go ahead, Kanan.
Sorry, everyone. Technical difficulties, still getting used to the Zoom meeting. You'd think you have it figured out after a year, but appreciate your patience. My name is Kanan Reverts. I'm with Kimley Horn, the civil engineer on this project. Place of business 4582 South Ulster Street, Suite 1500 in Denver, Colorado, 80237. What I was just about to say was that I actually think City and County of Broomfield has control of the slides at the moment. And so if you wanted to turn it over to Danielle, I think she can provide some commentary on the next few slides once she notes her name and address and is able to tell you to push forward in the presentation. So thank you.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Danielle Kennington, business address is 100 East Pine Street, Suite 200, Orlando, Florida, 32801. If you can go to the next slide, please. So we'll go ahead and go to the next one. I think we've kind of covered most of this information, and it'd be better to look at images if you go to the next slide. Project address is at Flatirons and Interlochen Loop. We've looked at this slide. Nothing has changed here. Obviously, the project's still in the same place. If you go to the next slide. All right. This is looking at the view from Flatiron Boulevard, looking at the architecture of the building. Our primary facades, we have really trying to pull the vernacular of the architecture in the region, really going with natural stone elements. We've got 2 tones of stone being used on the primary facades. We do have some cementitious elements as well, as in addition to stucco on the primary facades. On the secondary facades, we have we introduced more cementitious products. If you look at the that top corner there, we've got a wood look cementitious product that allow us to have a little bit more flexibility in the design and tie into the warm tones that we're trying to propose into this. We've worked closely with Bill Brannion with the city to ensure that the colors and the materials we're selecting are in keeping with the neighborhood and what the vernacular of everything around us, while still being able to set ourselves apart and really make a statement. The color scheme, we're dealing with just a few different tones of the warm colors that kind of contrast and allow us to provide a little bit different massing in the building, so the monolithic size of the building doesn't seem so overwhelming, and really bring the building and ground it on the facade. If you could go to the next slide. This is our kind of moment statement. This is looking from Flatirons Boulevard into Interlochen Loop when you would turn into the the project. It's going to be the main thing we see. You will notice, this will probably come up from the previous slide you guys saw on the project, that this elevation is a little bit different. We had a canopy kind of extending around that front corner. We did have an easement and a setback there that we weren't able to bring any hardscaping elements out there. So we had to change kind of our perspective on how we were interacting with the ground and how we were treating that space and how that space would be used, and had to rethink that. And we felt like the cantilevered element didn't really make as much sense when we weren't able to use that front corner the way we had originally thought, which actually worked out better in the way we were thinking about these residents using this space here and how they would actually be interacting with that corner. So that brings us to, I guess, terminates my portion of that. If you guys want to go to the next slide, we can talk about the plan elements. We looked at the elevations, I think the 3D. If you go to one more slide. Perfect. All right, so if you take a look at the left portion of the site, that's facing west. We've kind of catered the building shape to kind of optimize the views towards the mountains and kind of get our most for our money there. From an amenity standpoint, on the first floor, we've got the dog spot and bike storage right there at the entrance to the garage. Inside the garage, we have more bike parking, as Matt had mentioned, along with ski storage. On the northwest corner, we have the Sky Lounge on the 5th floor that gives you panoramic views of the city and the mountains, which I think is probably one of my favorite parts of the project, personally. If you were to go down the facade on the north portion of it, we've got a lot of different amenity spaces stacking there. We've got 2-story fitness volume. We've got a club room that kind of feeds into the pool courtyard and giving us this indoor-outdoor feel that we think the residents will really appreciate being able to spend so much time in such an amazing pool courtyard. And if you could go to the next slide, I think it would be best for Chris to discuss kind of the elements that he developed on this portion.
Hi, I'm Chris Hepler with Kimley Horn. I'm the project landscape architect. Business address is 4582 South Ulster Street, Suite 1500, Denver, Colorado 80237. I'm just going to briefly highlight the pool courtyard here, which we really are hoping becomes a big highlight for the residents. As you can see, there's a really good sized pool and spa with a sun shelf with the chairs in it. One big thing that, as Matt mentioned before, is we're going to do an outdoor tech lounge because we really want to focus on that work, being able flexible work schedules, and especially being able to get outside. That's going to be the whole courtyard be Wi-Fi enabled, and there's going to be power outlets and USBs and all that throughout the space. Another cool feature is some of the seating is going to be reclaimed wood, so another sustainable aspect of the project. There'll also be an outdoor kitchen and 2 fire features. Just lots of different spaces for the residents to be able to use. And then I'll pass it over to Kanan for some zoning items.
Thanks, Chris. You can go ahead and progress to the next slide. So one of the variance requests that Judy had mentioned was our dimensions of our parking garage. And this was one that we spent a lot of time working with Broomfield City staff on. The proposal that we've come up with is to shorten the parking stalls from 19 feet to 18 feet, and then shrink down the drive aisle from 25 feet to roughly 24 and a half feet. And this is consistent with parking garages that we've constructed across the country, and one that we worked with city staff to confirm that these dimensions worked via truck turning analyses and various other methods. If you go to the next slide, it should demonstrate the approach that we wanted to vary from. So the current Broomfield Municipal Code allows for a large number of compact stalls within a parking garage, or really any parking lot for that matter. And those compact stalls are at a 15-foot depth. So you could see the alternative to what we had arrived at would have been 15 feet to the 26-foot to the 19-foot. And I realize there's some play there in the dimensions probably in the middle. But what we didn't want to do was to implement 161 of these compact spaces inside a parking garage, especially knowing that you've got vehicles in Colorado that are meant for fun. You've got the sport utility vehicles and the ones that are quite large. And so we thought a more practical approach was to adjust those parking stalls down to 18 feet, and really had some great conversations with Tom Schomer about right sizing this parking garage and the parking spaces. So Just wanted to highlight that as the reason behind it. We could have gone in without a variance request, but felt the variance request was better for the city and better for our residents. So that would be the first variance that I would touch on. You can move forward with the slide, please. The second one that I wanted to highlight was the open space requirement. So right now we set above 25% for our open space, 25% being the open space requirement for the PUD zoning that has previously been established. But as Judy mentioned, 40% is what we typically see for residential properties in Broomfield, as is stated by the Broomfield Municipal Code. And what I wanted to highlight specifically on this sheet here is that the property line for this specific project is actually interesting. It's on the left side of that green, dark green rectangle that I've drawn on here. And so the amount of open space that we're able to count, we're limited by because of where the property line is, but there's actually a very substantial amount of frontage within that green rectangle on the east side of our property, with the outside of the green rectangle being where your curb line is. That also contributes to the open space. That said, we also wanted to maximize the open space elsewhere. We know that open space is a really important element in Interlochen and a really important element to the city and county of Broomfield, which is why we've added things like the dog courtyard and tried to add some nice plantings in that northeast corner that Danielle had highlighted on. So there are other areas as well that we really wanted to focus on in making sure that the presence of Broomfield and Interlochen is maintained with this site. The last thing I'd highlight with this image is that we worked with transportation planning on making sure that not only is our site walkable to other properties such as restaurants and businesses that we're hoping our residents will be able to support, but also we created a sidewalk path that wraps around the south side of the property. And so you've got this internal circular route that you don't have to go very far. You can walk out your back door and kind of take a lap around the property, and that contributes to our open space. And we've got some of these nice nook patios on the south side where they would be facing the retaining wall. We wanted to create some space out there for them. So lots going on this slide, but you can tell that we've really spent a lot of time thinking about how we get this project right-sized into Interlochen and the city and county of Broomfield. There were two other supplemental exhibits, Judy, regarding the setbacks that I had included. It looks like maybe we're at the end of our presentation page count. Do you know if we have access to be able to pull those up? I'd just like to touch on the setbacks and our thoughts behind those too, if we have those available.
Judy, were those in the link provided to Jake and IT?
Yeah, I combined them all into one PDF and changed the link. Perhaps I did not do it right.
Yeah, Judy, this is Jake. I used the link from I used the link from the checklist that was sent out, and it just has the 11 slides.
Yeah, and I've changed it today to add those other slides. So should I change the link, Jake, so that he can put those up, or?
We can either do that, or if the applicant has them readily available, they could share their screen as well. That might be a little faster if they have them.
Kanan, do you have those?
Yep, I have those available if you're willing to let me share my screen for just a brief moment.
Yeah, you should have permissions to do so. You can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Let me do that right now. Screen. Is that presenting properly?
It's a drawing. It looks good. A site plan.
Well, very good. That's what I'm trying to share with you. Thank you so much. So one of the other variances that Judy shared today was that we were looking to reduce the setback off of Interlochen Loop, and this was a very similar exhibit to what we had shared with our concept plan. The one thing I wanted to highlight on, if it wasn't clear in my open space drawing, is that the curb is way out here, and so you've got this very healthy distance between the building face and our curb, the property line doesn't start until about midway through there. And so you've got a setback at current 75-foot setback would push the building setback to be something like this, which would in total be 127 feet off of the back of the curb. So that created some challenges in terms of getting the right size of this building. However, we wanted to make sure that we were aligned with the intent of that setback. And so that's why our actual building placement still remains 82 feet off the back of the curb, although the variance results in a 35-foot setback adjustment. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't go overboard and bring this building right up next to the sidewalk here or next to the curb. We know that this particular trail is an important one in Interlochen, and so a healthy distance here, 82 feet, we felt like was still consistent with the intent of that setback. So that was one variance. And then the final item that I'll touch on just ever so briefly is we have the encroachment to the 20-foot setback on the north side. And I use encroachment because we're not looking to alter the setbacks. We think the 20-foot setback largely across the face of this building was an important thing to hold, but there are certain elements, certain cantilever elements that overhang the actual setback. And you can really see this in section view right here, where you've got 20 feet from the back of the curb. We've still maintained very similar type of a arrangement with Interlochen Boulevard, where we wanted to maintain the intent of the setback, so 20 feet from the building to our curb, but the actual encroachment, this portion right here, this little yellow portion and the roof that we've considered, jumps in just a few feet. And I think the max extent of that was 4.2 or something to that effect. And this was another item that we worked very closely with the Architectural Control Committee on, knowing that we wanted this space to feel right. We wanted this building to be positioned correctly. And we were able to get the ACC's approval on this, and they were pleased, I think, with the urban character while still maintaining the suburban elements that we know make up Broomfield. So those were the four variance items that I wanted to touch on, just so you had some additional context and clarity. I'm happy to reference these if we get into further discussion, but I think at this moment that concludes our presentation, Matt, unless you have any other things that you wanted to close in before we had turned it over to planning and zoning.
Other than we've just been it's been a pleasure so far working with everyone. And we're really excited about this project and being part of Broomfield and bringing new residents to Broomfield and existing residents to our project. And if there's questions or what have you, myself and my team are open to listen and answer any of them you may have.
Okay, thank you. I know we will have many questions from the commissioners. So does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you. So now we'll move to public comments. Does any member of the public have any comments on this item? If there is anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this item, please raise your hand or use the phone number to call in your comments. Please keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes. Does the staff have anyone in queue on the phone and wanting to participate at this time? I haven't seen anyone.
I agree, Chairman. I'm not seeing anyone with a raised hand.
Okay, we'll give them just a minute. While we're waiting, Matt, I hear there's a little basketball going on in March in your area.
It is. We'll see how they handle that. It should be a unique situation. I actually grew up in Colorado and I ended up coming to college in Indiana, but it sounds like every university is going to have some sort of games, and downtown's going to have games. So not sure how it's all going to come together. So it should be an interesting situation in March.
It's interesting because I grew up in Indiana and then we transferred to Colorado. So I'm quite familiar with what you're talking about. So let's move on to the commissioners' questions. Does any of the commissioners have any? Commissioner Franz.
First, a compliment. I just want to compliment you on the elevations of the buildings, some balconies. I think it's going to fit in very well with the area in Interlochen. I had the first page of the site plan shows a gray area around the parking garage, and I just wondered what that gray area was. It parallels with the parking garage. Could you bring up that initial site plan?
And while we're waiting on that, Nanette, we'll go back into the, you calling the roll call for the comments per the script.
Yeah, because I mean, I see the grass area, the trees in green and so forth. And there's a dark gray area parallel with the parking deck. I just wondered what that was.
Danielle,
I can speak to that.
go ahead.
Yes. So to get our open parking garage requirements, we have a 10-foot step between the building and the parking garage for fresh air. So that is the space between the building structure and the parking garage structure on the north end.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question for Mr. Hare, I noticed you mentioned the possibility, including solar, maybe on the amenity space, the fitness center, the club room. I wonder if you would commit to doing that.
It all depends on the budget of the project. To be frank with you, we are, we're working, as I mentioned, we have worked with the HAC and made the commitment to do the cash in lieu for that. We're investigating the solar to be on much of the roof of the building other than the garage. I can't sit here and say I fully commit to it. I could tell you that we've been investigating it as a team for 6 months, and we continue to move forward with the idea that we are going to do that. That is obviously the last portion of the building that will ever be constructed, because in doing the solar, the way the building will be constructed, the east side of the building is built first after the garage, then the west side. For the entire solar system to work well, it all has to be installed at one time. We definitely have had plans to do it. As I mentioned in our concept review, we are leaning towards being able to do that for sustainability. As I mentioned, we have electronic systems throughout the building. We have EV stations within the garage. So we're definitely still trying to find a way to make that work, to be completely honest with you, Mr. Franz.
No, and thank you. I know you're doing a lot for sustainability. I just thought that was an important part of it. And so I just hope that happens.
I definitely hear you.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
We will now call on each commission member for their comments. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Hastings,
Thank you. I understand your setback on the going from 75 to 35 on the, I guess on the east side off of Interlochen Loop. But what is the front of the building? The front of the building, is that on the north?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Keenan.
Sure. Thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, the front of the building, I believe we would say the front side of that building is off of Flatiron Boulevard. And so we have a very healthy public walk. We also have a private walk that's up against the side of the building. And so we're thinking about the amenity zone space there. We're thinking about the sidewalk space there, and tried to maintain that healthy 16-foot boundary with the 8+8 in all locations that you see in a little bit more urban environment. But from Flatiron Boulevard, I think we would consider, and Danielle, you can correct me if you disagree, but I think that would be the front elevation for this project.
What, under the current PUD, what's the setback from the front? Your 20-foot setback is on the side setback.
It is also 20 feet on the front setback for the PUD.
But the existing standard is 35, right?
Let me pull up the PUD here and just double check. Maybe Judy, you know off the top of your head, but I believe we were at 20-foot setback off the north side as well, off the front side. Happy to dig in.
Yes, that's correct.
20 feet already. Okay.
So that's what the PUD allows. Okay. Just want to know. we're giving up 12% of the open space. What does Broomfield get for that 12%? You understand what I'm asking?
Not entirely. No. If you could elaborate.
If it's residential properties, it's supposed to be 40% of open space, and you're at 28. What did we get for giving you that 12%?
Well, I think it's important, and actually I had a great conversation with Judy about this today. The way that PUD zoning is set up, and I know Judy and Anna can also speak to this, is that the PUD zoning sets the coverage at 25%. So we're very much in line with the 25% requirement that's already established in the PUD zoning. The comment, I believe, although certainly welcome to have Anna and Judy open up to this, is that the typical residential zoning that you see outside of PUD is 40%.
No,
and so,
if I could correct, and Judy, if I have this incorrect, you can correct me, but any residential in a PUD district requires a 40% open area requirement. So that's in any PUD district, unless the PUD itself has a lower established requirement. And my understanding was that there is a 25% minimum for other areas of the PUD, but it did not extend to this parcel. We can certainly verify that and make sure that the lower open area requirement did not extend to this particular parcel, but I think that was based on the research Judy had done, was that it had not been granted here yet. But it is within the ability of the Architectural Control Committee and through this process to allow reductions. And reductions in open area are pretty common in high density projects because it can't be achieved with a 40% open area. So we see reductions up along State Highway 7 in the multifamily developments proposed there, as well as in Arista. That's another example, as well as the Flatiron Marketplace. So any areas that we're trying to achieve a higher density, we often see it paired with a variance to reduce open area. Kind of getting back to your question, Commissioner Hastings, is that's the trade-off, is in order to achieve a higher density, you give on open area requirements very commonly.
But we didn't get any, we're not getting any public land dedication, all we're getting is cash. So there's no, the residents have a limited, let's say, airspace.
And I think Commissioner Hastings, the applicant's done a good job of reviewing some of the amenities that they offer on the site that, you're right, are not some of our suburban style green spaces, but include some other amenities within the building and are available to the residents in the future.
Okay. I'd like to comment your proposal, desire to have solar. If it doesn't materialize economically on the front end, would you be open to having the requirement for there at least to be the stubs for the solar to be installed at a later date?
Oh, we'll definitely look into that for sure. I mean, when we look at that, the solar component of it as a project that's going to take 26 months to build, the adaption of the solar probably does not occur until month 24, 25 on that. And if we do and look into that, to be frank with you, if it does work financially, the realization of it is it makes more sense to put it on the building than the stubs, because just putting the stubs is one thing, but by doing the solar, obviously it reduces some of the energy costs throughout the entire building. Not all of it. It's not going to reduce anything for the residents. It's quite frankly, the solar on this building is going to be more financially for the operations of the building than it will be for a particular resident. It's going to be better for and help reduce cost of the parking garage, the dog spa, some of the amenity spaces. And one of the reasons why we integrated the idea of doing smart apartments, because we knew that the cost of the solar could be expensive, especially with the type of building that we're building at this time. But with residents that are living in a Class A apartment community, by giving them a smart apartment that allows them to manage their lights, their heat, their HVAC, including drip stations, which I'm not going to bore everyone, but there are 2 areas within the units in the apartment and in the kitchen that if there's somehow a leak, this detects it and it can go to their phone, which then can go to the management, which is quite frankly, it's a sustainability, pardon me, for the entire project. And so when we looked at solar on the roof, we also investigated what was really important for the residents. And one of those things is smart apartments, because it allows them to keep their utility costs down if they, quite frankly, they have to manage it themselves. But if they leave and they realize they left their lights on and their heat was at 75, they could change it from their phone and drop their heat to 69 and turn their lights off. Their energy bill is going to be less for their apartment. So we kind of have looked at it on a broad base of what really is the most important, not only for the building, but also for the residents of the building. So my answer to you is absolutely, but as we get down the process of the building being in construction and knowing what's important to the building, I think solar is definitely on the list of things we'd like to do. It just has to be within the financial constraints that make sense, not only for the budget of the building, but for the operations of the building in the future.
Okay, let me change it. I know you're going to have EV on each floor of the garage. How many?
We plan to have 20 EV stations in the garage.
You know, that's very good. It's more than most apartments we've had proposed. But how long? What's the life expectancy of the apartment? We got 20, 30, 40 years.
The life expectancy of the building?
That's a leading question. Here's where I'm going at. If we on an energy standpoint are going to go to 100% EV cars by 2040 or 2030, how will we be able to have those cars charged in that apartment complex?
Well, Danielle can speak to that, but I can tell you is if in 15 years we're seeing an uptick of more EV and we need to add more, we can put more conduit into the garage for those particular units. Danielle, would you agree with that? Or you're welcome to opine on that question, but we've actually had that discussion. We feel like 20 is the right number today.
Okay.
But moving forward in 10 years, you're right. I mean, the electricity and how many people want to have an electric car, there's the opportunity to add more into the garage into the future. Danielle, wouldn't you agree?
Yes. Yeah, the system as designed, the system motherboard, I don't know what has the best way to say that, like the transformers can accommodate additional EV stations if it were to be desired in the future. It's an easy conduit input, just adding it on where it makes sense.
You're going to have the transformer sized to accommodate that in the future. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we've already upsized it just to accommodate that.
Forward planning, very good. One of the things that this project is in the airport zone, and are you going to be able to provide that 25 degrees sound attenuation outside, inside?
Danielle, that's for you.
Sorry, say that one more time. The decibels for the air.
About the meeting a 25 dB sound attenuation.
Oh. Yep. Yeah, we checked all of the assemblies. All the assemblies meet, including the windows, meet a minimum of 25. I think our walls are more aligned with about 40. So it's going to be our windows would be the weak points. And we're at, I think, 25 to 35, depending on which window style it is, if it's the double versus the single.
Okay. The other problem that I have is the I know it's a small point. You're cutting down the traffic aisle in the garage 6 inches, but you know, 6 inches could make a big difference. And how are you going to accommodate these oversized vehicles in the garage? I know you have a lot of quote you want to call them standard spaces, but it's called standard minus when you reduce it from 19 feet down to 18 feet.
So our current parking plan includes 22% of the Broomfield standard that are 19 feet. So the north and south end of the parking deck are the 19-foot, the 9 by 19-foot stalls. So it's just the width, the ones on the width of the parking garage. So up and down the actual ramp, those ones are going to be the 9 by 9 or 9 by 18 stalls. So we do have 22% that meet the Broomfield standard 9 by 19.
Okay, well, in the overall plan, it doesn't state that, so that's why it's kind of misleading. So you would be able to accommodate your oversized vehicles, as I like an F-150.
Yeah.
And they're okay. All right, thank you.
Is that all comments, Commissioner Hastings?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Hart?
Yes, thank you. Chuck mentioned the Rocky Mountain Airport request for sound attenuation, and that is, you've got that designed to meet that recommendation. Is that correct?
Correct.
That is
Okay. The other recommendation was from the Open Space and Trails Committee, and they wanted you to increase the size of that trail. Are you able to do that?
Yeah, yes, we were able to accommodate that during the comments.
Yeah, that's great. Next one is, that's really nice amenity area you have around the pool there, but are you going to have on-site management to take care of the late night parties, or how's that situation going to work?
Yes, our management firm that has been hired is a national management firm. They're the third largest in the United States. They also manage properties in Broomfield at this time.
I think we lost the volume there.
Yeah.
Jerry, Commissioner Hart, did we lose you?
Yeah, okay, I think, am I back?
Yep.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Internet connections. Okay. If you're going to have parking on the upper level of the parking garage, open?
Correct.
Go ahead.
Correct.
Okay. What are you going to do about snow storage there?
Danielle, why don't you take that one? Danielle has been working with Wells Concrete, who is our precast garage company that we are working with to build the garage.
Yes. So in looking at that with both Wells and our structural engineer, we actually ended up adding another level and a half of parking garage to accommodate the snow storage, so that the snow storage wouldn't impact us being able to properly park for our residents.
Okay.
So that we plan to store the snow on the top portion of the parking garage. We've got, it'll be zoned off with sections saying the maximum height that it can be piled. In the event that they exceed that, another company would have to come in and assist with managing getting it off of the roof at the top level of the parking deck. But we did add 2 additional bays onto the top level just to support the snow storage without impacting our parking spaces.
You won't impact your parking. That was really the question. I got a question, I guess, for staff and maybe also for you. You've got a 71-foot tall building that's within 20 feet of one street and 35 feet of another street, or the right of way. I'm a little concerned about, have you done any shadow analysis? Particularly concerned about winter, buildup of snow and ice there if there's a problem. I don't know, staff, do we require that? And if we do, have we done it? And if not, have they considered it? How's that? Anna? Judy?
Commissioner Hart, we do not require shadow studies as part of our typical process.
Okay.
I will say we do have some other tall buildings close to the street. Primarily, I'm thinking of Arista, where we have, where our snowplows need to work within the shadow area. But I'll leave it to the applicant to respond whether they're willing to do such a study.
Okay. Thank you.
We haven't currently done one, but it wouldn't be a problem to do one if you'd like.
Well, I'm only concerned about the buildup of ice and snow on Flatirons and Interlock, and maybe the effect to the west on the Marriott lot and how they might be affected with ice and snow, because in the wintertime, there's not going to be a lot of sun getting at certain points, So something you may want to consider just to check it out. And really, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hart.
Curious?
Ooh, my turn. Okay. So I think there's some really cool aspects of the project in there. So just a few questions I had, or maybe just ideas. I was wondering, bounce them off and see what you think. I really like the sidewalk going around the entirety of the building, creating the access to the back, apartments. Usually those are forgotten about. I did know that there are a number of overlook balconies on the north and pretty much the north side and looks like the west side. Sorry, I have to continually flip back and forth between the different drawings. But there's not as many on the south side. And so I was wondering why, am I missing it? Are there balconies on the south side of the building, or are there not?
I can speak to that. We really focused more on walkouts on the first floor on the south side. The reason is there are 2 retaining walls on the south side of this that the south side of our building will face that are about 60 feet, and Camden is right behind us. Balconies facing a retaining wall or a building are not attractive to residents. And when you live on the north side or the west side of this building and you're getting views of the entire Front Range, the mountains all the way up to Boulder, or on the west side, those are different element units for particular residents, whereas a resident that lives on the south side of the building might not matter as much to them because their unit might have a different amenity on the inside, such as they might have a different color palette in terms of the design than a unit that's on the west or on the north. So with the retaining wall and that building that's in place, our team, including Evan and Danielle, had to do a very good job of thinking of how to make those south side units attractive to potential residents. And in my experience of being in development for 20 years, a challenge is when you have a retaining wall and a building behind you, most people aren't going to go out on their balcony and go look into a retaining wall. And so what we tried to do was have these nice elements on the first level of the south side, and people could walk out. As Kanan had mentioned, we can then take a walk around the building, and we just try to create those different elements within the entire architecture of the building.
Okay. Living in a building with a balcony facing a building. I will tell you, the balcony is still really nice, even if you're facing another building. Especially in a pandemic, when you're stuck at home for 12 months, that balcony has been a lifesaver. And like, it's also the south side of the building. And I hear you, maybe not the most interesting, but it looks to me as if there'll be enough sunlight for those to be some amazing grow spaces as well. I mean, I grow an entire garden on my little balcony and fill it with greenery. And so, I think it's less of the effect of the retaining wall. I definitely see for the ground level, the second level, but above that, based on the drawings that I was looking at in the STP, or is it the STP? I can't remember which one I'm looking at. It looked like the upper levels would still get pretty good sunlight from those south-facing entrances. And I just really, I just wanted to kind of think about and encourage it because I think that would be really beneficial, and it's kind of just a loss. And the backside of the building, thinking about that, I just thought it might be really nice to add that space. Secondly, since we are talking about the south side and how it's facing another set of buildings, have you considered some sort of facade around the parking garage space that's out to the other building? Again, above that retainer section?
Danielle, you can take that one, but one of the reasons why we have it is to ventilate the garage properly.
Exactly. We need as much fresh air into the garage as we can get, or we're going to have to find ways to separate the building a little bit more from the actual wood structure. So that was really what was driving us, leaving that as open as possible. We do have the full cutoff light fixtures, so from a consideration to the neighbor's standpoint, we do have light fixtures that are at least not going to have any trespass beyond the parking garage and be an interruption to them. But from a screening standpoint, we didn't add anything that would increase or decrease our ability to get fresh air.
Okay. And we also had this direct discussion with Bill Brandon with the ACC in detail about the garage, and he fully supported how we were doing the garage on the south side due to the fact of how the building is being designed and how it will need to be built and how we need to ventilate that garage for the building and also the residents.
Okay. And then in the landscape development plan, I just wanted to confirm that you're adding some new trees to the kind of open space on the, what is it, interlocking side of the building, interlocking road, so it's the east side of the building.
Yes, there's so we're pretty limited on that side due to some easements, but there's 4 new trees proposed on the east side of the building along interlocking, and in addition to the trees that will be preserved on the east side of the existing sidewalk.
3 to the north, and then in some of the renderings, there's multiple trees on the west side of the building, and then I think in the landscape development, there's 1 tree in the median between the parking lot and the drive-through, and then 2 in the dog park area.
Yeah, so the plans are going to be the most up to date, so we can only have 1 tree in the island on the southwest corner due to a storm line. And then, yes, there are 2 trees in the dog park, and then there's 2 trees closer to the drive access on the northwest corner of the site, adjacent to the building. And then there's 3 new proposed trees along Flatirons, in addition to the, I believe there's 3 trees that we are preserving in the existing tree line.
Okay. Other than that, I think the balconies would be cool on the south side, but I get it if you don't want the balconies on the south side. Overall, I think it's a pretty cool project. I don't know about the name of the lock, but I'm fine with it. I'll survive. I live down the street. I'm in the Arista complex.
Gotcha. Well, appreciate your questions.
Franz,
No further questions.
Silvers,
You know, you guys have done a nice job. I think this is a pretty cool project as well. There's several different comments I have related to it, because when I first looked at the elevation drawings on your package, I thought they looked so blasé and boring. But then when I saw your perspectives that you presented, they certainly improve the architectural style with those corners and the natural wood looking and the braces and so on and so forth. So I think that really uplifted the exterior facades without, it doesn't really show that in the elevations. So you might try to figure out a way to do that, or show these buildings in the perspective that you showed them to us as part of your package. Because again, those elevations that's in the package looks pretty boring. One of the other things that I was thinking about was some horizontal relief for the parking garage facing south. Right now, it just looks like gray concrete. Is there any way to mix in a color in that concrete so it more highlights and complements the building? Is there any way to put any reveals or offsets or screening to make that more attractive? Because you've got these nice architectural elements, then you got this slab of concrete gray going between them, and there should be a way to make that look more complementary to the building and to the project. Because I think what you've done and illustrated is pretty cool, but you know, if you could do something to improve that, would you be willing to consider that?
I think it's based on cost parameters, to be frank. This is a very expensive project. It's about an $80 million project, and there are multiple things that are being asked. If we're willing to do, we've investigated every possible arena around garage, solar, what have you. Danielle, I believe you and Bill Brandon actually had a conversation about screening. Is that correct?
Well,
I hear your point. Like, I hear what you're saying. I mean, you're wondering if you can dress up the back of that garage, and if that's something that is a comment, it's certainly something we'll continue to investigate. We want to provide the absolute best project we can to the city of Broomfield. There's no question.
Yeah, I would think so as well. To your point, if you're investing $80 million and you want it to be a great looking project, I think just having a slab of gray in the middle of these two really nice, legs of the building would certainly complement it. Would that keep it from renting? No. Would it make the visual aspect of the aesthetics better? Yes. So to your point, the architectural feature, isn't a revenue income, but it's certainly something that makes your building look that much better. So, and then along those same questions, we talked about sustainability. Are you guys considering going with a silver package or a platinum package or a gold package on sustainability?
In what fashion do you mean? Are you asking if this is going to be a LEED building?
Yes.
It is not going to be a LEED building.
Okay, so even LEED silver, you're not even doing the minimum? And you talk about all this electronic enhancements and all of the things that you're doing to make it sustainable and so on and so forth, but yet you're not going to consider it being a LEED facility?
At this time, it's not something we've investigated to do as a LEED building. We've investigated to build the property with these amenities within the building, as well as the features that we're offering for security and also amenities for the residents. But we have not, and to be frank, we haven't looked at this as a LEED building from the beginning, to be frank with you.
Matt, you mind if I chime in? This is Evan Worth with Dwell Design Studio, 100 East Pine Street, Suite 200, Orlando, Florida, 32801. I think the team's done an excellent job of managing the budget. We're trying to invest capital into the elevations that that will impact the community the most. I think we're also trying to identify ways that the end user could impact the sustainable aspect of this building through the touch points that Matt mentioned in regards to smart controls and their thermostats to maintain temperatures, lights. The end user, 254 units has a greater impact than, just putting money into the screening. I think that, I think,
are you okay?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just been a long day. Let me have a sip of water if you bear with me.
You bet.
Thank you for your patience. In identifying a LEED platinum building and LEED silver building, there's a lot of cost parameters that go into that don't directly benefit the community. We're looking at deals across the country in our architecture programs, and we find that there are other programs in which are more suitable. In this case, we did a really thorough investigation and market research with Matt's kind of pre-construction team to identify in what ways that were obtainable with this project's budget, so we can sit down and really have the greatest impact with our dollars and cents. So kind of circling back, and appreciate everyone's patience here, circling back to my initial comment, was trying to manage this budget to have the greatest impact on cost control and address sustainability through the end user, all the tenants, versus putting dollars and cents to areas where we won't get that return.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people in the LEED environment would totally disagree with you on those comments, but that's your building, you do what you wish. But when you look at economy and the future of population and so on and so forth, the LEED facilities are really taking hold and doing a lot of good. And generally, most of the things that you're doing probably adds numbers to that LEED facility. So you do certain things and they add certain numbers anyway. So you may not be that far away from the lowest level. So it's just something you might consider. You know, the other comment I had is all these balconies that we love. What happens if we get a foot of snow and somebody on the third floor or 40 feet in the air decides to shovel their balcony? Where does that snow go? What's the prevention to get somebody whacked below them?
That simply is our management firm's responsibility. It will be in their lease. It will be, there will be significant penalties to a resident if they do things such as that. As I mentioned, our management firm is managing property in Broomfield right now. And I will tell you that residents need to follow the rules that they will sign in their lease. And one of them will include what they do with snow that is on their balcony. And you can forfeit a deposit pretty quickly on an apartment if you don't abide to those rules, because you're right. If you decide that you don't like your snow on your balcony and you dump it on someone, first of all, that's just not a nice thing to do, number one. But number two, there's some pain to a resident to do that. And our management company will make sure that that resident, if they do that, they'll enforce it.
No, that's good to know. It's just a question that I know we talked about the balconies and they're really cool, but in Colorado, you know, sometimes we get a foot or two of snow. And then also when that snow melts, they provide icicles and hanging off the balcony, so on and so forth. So I didn't know if you had any sort of gutter assembly around it where there's a little drain in it that it drains to an interior drain that goes down into the system, or does it just run off the edge and create icicles hanging down? And if one of those break loose, it's like a spear coming down to somebody below. So I know it's a safety issue, and I don't want to get into that to the extent that I am, but I just want to make sure the citizens of Broomfield that move into that development are somewhat considerate of people below them and what's happening, even to that point of being away from the street 20 feet and 35 feet and so on and so forth. It's still something that could be very reachable as the wind's blowing and things breaking loose and going down. So do you have an internal, because I just constructed a building in Broomfield and we put an internal drain in the balconies we had. So when the snow melted, it would go into that drain and it would feed into the building drainage system. So I didn't know if you had done that or not. We just did a corporate headquarters, probably a mile from where you're building. And so that's the way we did our balconies. And I didn't know if you were doing anything to retain that water or what you're doing with ice and snow and et cetera. So you're just letting it just naturally melt and run off the side.
Danielle, can you speak to that?
Yeah, we currently don't have any internal drains planned for most of the balconies. We do want a couple there over conditioned space, but that's more from a waterproofing standpoint, less so from a snow accumulation or consideration there.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've beat that to death. But other than that, I think it's a cool project, and it certainly gives Broomfield the population that we may be looking for to expand in an environment. And when you get these densities, it certainly is a different environment than other buildings and other projects, and we totally realize that. But I think this is a good add to the opportunities for other people to move into a facility like this and to a place that will give them a maximum of amenities inside the four walls with your dog thing, your shower, spa, and all the different amenities that you have. So I think it's pretty cool. It's just, you just need to fine tune it a little bit, which I think you can, given that, economics is always a play, but the same way with the satisfaction of the occupants that's taking it into the building too. So we'll see what happens. So that's all I had. So thank you again for all your comments.
Appreciate all of yours. Thank you.
Nicholson.
Thank you. I do want to take a few moments here. Are the electrical HVAC units on the roof, or are they at ground level?
The condensers will all be on the roof of the building.
And what is the snow removal? I think Danielle, you mentioned something about drainage around the HVAC systems for snow
the roof
removal
has
on the roof.
internal drains. Our roof has internal drains.
Okay. I was trying to balance the snow, the HVAC, and potential solar. That could be a very busy roof.
Yes.
If that all came to play. I appreciate the information on the 75-foot and the 20-foot setbacks on the street sides, and the graphics on those. Those were very helpful and informative. I also appreciate the work that was put into the garage in order to improve the design and accommodate the 19-foot spaces at the ends of the garage and the 18 along the sides. Appreciate that, because you're right, a lot of Coloradoans' vehicles are pretty good in size. Jake's comments regarding balconies do chime quite well with me as well. It would be pretty cool on the south side of the house to have access to fresh air and a place to put some greenery. But so those are just some comments. I don't have a lot of extensive questions that didn't already get covered by fellow commissioners, but I like the concept. I understand the drop in open space on the property in exchange for higher density. I say that because I know that area up there has access to a lot of park facilities and trail systems. And I've ridden my bike through there with my husband, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful place. So I think residents will have that ability to escape the house and get out and get some fresh air. So I don't have any other comments but I do appreciate the hard work that's gone into it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
We have a follow-up question by Commissioner Hastings, and I'll call on you, Commissioner Hastings, but let's keep your comments to like 2 minutes or less.
Okay, thanks. Hey, Commissioner Hart made a comment about the shadow over on the north side of the building. And I looked on the Google Maps, and I have to look at this location, and it looked like a beautiful sunny day. Then I looked at it further, that the apartments directly to the south, there's snow in the alleyway between them, to the fact that everything else around in the surrounding area is bare, but probably about 20 to 30 feet into this particular property's property line still has snow on it. So I think that with the 71-foot height, you're going to have a major problem on the north side of the building out on Flatirons Boulevard, as far as that icing and snow and everything. That's a major issue. But I agree with you on the color on the concrete on the south side of the building. We talked about that on the marketplace up there at where the old Best Buy was for that parking garage. That was for far as having them some type of color on that one as well. Then it's south facing. So thank you.
Thank you. And then we had a follow-up question by Commissioner Franz.
Just a quick follow-up to your comments, Mr. Silvers. After living in a building that had a balcony, and I have a best friend that also was in a building with a balcony, where I was, the balcony, of course, sloped inward. There was a drain that was connected to the building system. But the biggest issue was not the snow, was the rain. When it would rain and then freeze, and that balcony would turn into a skating rink. And I think that's one of the big reasons that it should be drained somehow into the building drain system. Thank you.
I would agree with that. Okay, anybody else? I don't see any hands up. So if there's anyone that has any additional questions or requires any additional information before I close the public hearing, Commissioner Carius?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of interesting, these different balances that are being stricken in the conversation here. Especially, there's a lot of discussion about these fancy amenities, being added to the building's design itself with unique controls and access to these different things. but then kind of these basic functions of just making sure drainage on the balconies and providing open air spaces in the front and the back and different stuff are kind of missing from the design. And they're small overall, I think, and areas where it could be kind of sacrificed in different cost-cutting mechanisms. And I just wonder, you know, the price of a project like this, the rent for a project like this, is probably pretty significant already. And so, you know, kind of hyped up with all these sustainability features that rely upon the individual's kind of commission of the act to, you know, create sustainability, really removes away kind of that responsibility from the developer, you know, yourself, in, you know, designing a sustainable building front. And I mostly only say this because I'm literally writing a dissertation on the use of sustainability in architecture to justify expensive projects and expensive rents. But it does make me concerned that some of these basic functions, where like the drainage of the balconies, the very blank facades of the south end of the building, which is, you know, I choose intentionally south-facing apartments because of the access to sun, because of the access to green spaces. And I think it, you know, really loses a value with that. But I you know, really appreciate the project overall. I think that it is beneficial to the area for sure. I just kind of wonder if maybe the alignment of values of the actual development itself is maybe just a little bit off in some categories.
My comment would be, we have worked with planning and with the city and this entire team to follow every stipulation that the city has to provide the best project for the city of Broomfield. We have not looked to cut any corners. We haven't looked to not add something. The sustainability items of technology, we are in a technology park. We are in an area where residents, from our hours and hours of market study, research of residents, research of people that are living in the area, that want to live in the area, the businesses, I can assure you, and I fully hear every comment that you have, I can assure you that we as a team are doing and continue to do everything we can to provide the best property on all four corners of it, to provide for each possible prospective resident that will be a resident of Broomfield. And I can promise you that this team continues to do that day in and day out, working with Judy and Anna and the rest of the city, because we're not looking to provide a project that is going to cut corners. We are trying to provide the American dream for residents that are going to live at this building and live in Broomfield.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? And we could always make that a condition as well, as this moves forward, if somebody wants to do that. As far as the drainage on the balconies and the coloring of the south-facing concrete and so on and so forth. So, but anyway, any other questions? If none, I will declare the public hearing officially closed. Is there any unresolved issues? If not, I will move on and any additional comments from staff. Being none, we will now proceed to the resolution. Resolution PZ 2021-5, a resolution approving with or without conditions, or a resolution denying Mid-Cities Filing 1 Lot 2 Planned Unit Development Amendment and Site Development Plan. What is the pleasure of the commission? Somebody's taking a lot of notes, can articulate something really clear and precise. Chuck? Jake?
I can pull up the sheet if you'd like a motion.
Sure.
So I think I would move to approve resolution number PZ 2021-5, Mid-Cities Filing number 1, Lot 2, Planned Unit Development Amendments and Site Development Plans for the variances and the Site Development Plan or PUD amendments necessary. And then I would like it if we could at least try to find a background, something to cover the gray. I don't care, paint it over. I get the air ventilation stuff, paint it. People are going to be back there. It's facing the buildings. You know, I don't know what to say about it, but that would be my one item that I really wish would be addressed. I totally agree that just the gray parking garage in the back, and it's facing other people's houses, you know, 3-story buildings. But I'll sacrifice on the balconies. I guess we'll just leave out, unless somebody else has anything else.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
If that is something that you would like, Judy, I think you would probably have to opine to this. That would have to be something that the ACC would have to approve. Bill Brannon would have to approve what we're doing, as he's already approved our architecture in our building on all 4 sides, and he has approved the garage as it looks today. If that is something that we can investigate, but Bill Brannon with the ACC would have to approve what we're going to do in the color. And I'm more than happy to have that conversation with him. My only comment is he's kind of already given us a blessing how it looks today. And I know his approval from the ACC matters. So that's my only caveat is, as you're asking that as a possible condition is, Judy or Anna, is that correct? If my team looked into painting that back concrete, wouldn't Bill have to be the one to approve the color and what the use of it is, as he's already approved it as it looks today in the renderings?
Commissioners, I'm happy to confirm that the ACC does have to approve architecture. That does not mean that we have to hold to what they have previously approved. But if there are changes made to the architecture, those do certainly need to go back through the ACC and need to make sure that those changes are approved.
And I would think that would be an improvement, not necessarily a detriment. I know Bill Branyon very well, and he's very proud of his buildings and the development over there. And I think that's something that he would probably smile that, oh, great, we're moving the gray to something else that more matches the building's aesthetics and makes it better looking for the citizens and the occupants of the building. I don't see that being a negative, other than the plaintiff or the applicant would have to go get his approval to do that and select a color that matches the buildings and so on and so forth. So I think that's a good condition to put into the motion, but that's my opinion. And also, I think the balcony should have a draining system.
Excuse me, you know what? As I'm listening to you, as you guys have been very positive about our project, let us work with Bill and we'll figure out a color that we can paint the back of that garage so it fits in with the property. I don't know what color that is today, but it obviously is not going to be gray. Let us work with Bill and figure out something that adheres to the rest of the building that would make you all a little bit happier than the gray color. Would that be good with everyone?
It's Commissioner Carius's motion, so he would have to approve that.
I mean, my language of the motion was just to explore options to create an interesting background. That was all I was going for. You can explore it with whoever, you can paint it yourself, you can come up with something cooler. I don't care. It's it's facing people's houses, it's facing people's space, and it sucks to live directly across from a parking garage. Granted, we've already talked about the balconies, and you say there's not going to be balconies on the south side of it, but I mean, there are other people with balconies on the other side of your parking garage who are going to be looking at that.
Right.
We certainly will investigate as you asked, we will certainly investigate dressing up that south portion of the garage.
No, and I would add that language a little stronger, because investigate doesn't mean anything. It's not a performance factor. I would say you must, or you shall, or you must change the color to add it to be comparable to the building architectural aesthetics. We need to say yes, they will change the color. Not that they'll think about it, or not that they'll investigate it, or not that they'll ho-hum about it. No, you have to do it. And you have to change the grade to another color that's compatible with the building. Yeah, I think you have to be more specific on that requirement. So are you okay with that, Commissioner Carius?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think, you know, if it's changing it to a shall, I think that's perfectly okay.
Right. Okay, so
Emphasizing
we
the
have a
need
motion.
for a change to that back design.
Right. We have a motion. Is there a second? I see 2 hands raised, but we'll get to that in the discussion. So is there a second? I hear you talking, Chuck, but I mean, I see your lips moving, but your voice isn't coming through.
Well, Earl has his hand up too, but I was up there first. I would second the motion, but I would, for clarification of what I think what you're talking about, is that it is a desire that our desire that the back side, the south side of the garage not be gray, and that the developer will work with the ACC, of the Flatirons, or Mid-City, wherever it's appropriate, and to work up a acceptable color to them. But the main point is that one, I think it's important for us to send a message to the council that we think this is an issue that should be brought to their attention. They should be aware. It should not be just something that just on the side, just work on this.
Right. Yeah, it's a mandatory item.
Mandatory item that they will work on it. Second, I have another condition I think we should look at as well, is that they improve the drainage off the porches,
balconies,
and that they also look about improving or looking at the possibility of balconies on the south side as well.
Now that's a little tougher.
Well, it's something we somehow we have to have some type of a recommendation that this is an area of concern. And although that would be, it's much more of a costly factor there, I think. But somehow there, I need to get that message into the council.
To try to control the meeting and try to get the specifics out, I would say, we're good to have a mandatory issue about changing the color from gray to something more acceptable that matches the aesthetics of the building and approved by the ACC. And the second item you had was a friendly amendment to Commissioner Carius. So, and it was about improving the drainage system on the balcony, somehow tying that into the building system so the water and the ice and stuff just doesn't flow off the balconies. I think those are 2 very acceptable friendly amendments. And the thing about adding another balcony to the south, it's kind of starting to redesign their building, and I don't know that that's something that we should do. Okay, so we have the ACC for the color of the grade, to change that to a color more acceptable and meeting the aesthetics of the building that's approved by the ACC. And the second item is to try to tie in a drainage system on the balconies to control the water from going off the edge and the snow and so on and so forth. Would you accept those conditions, Commissioner Carius?
Yeah, I think I'm fine with the second one, as long as there's no concern about an extreme increased cost in, slightly changing the balcony. I mean, I don't see why there would be an extreme increased cost from just allowing it to drain off one side or something.
Right. Okay. So we have a motion and a proper second, and we had discussions on the motion. Commissioner Franz?
No, you already answered. I just want to make sure there was a condition about it. Not so much that there's drainage off the balcony, but there's drainage within the building drainage system for the balcony. So there's not ice, water, snow, and so forth just rolling off the balcony. As long as Mr. Carius agrees with that condition, then I'm fine.
Okay.
My concern was that the drainage into the building itself would be too onerous a requirement, but rather the drainage off in some form would be much easier for them to comply with and build into the design.
Right.
That's what I was thinking. Drainage into the building, we're gonna make things a bit complicated. I'm trying to keep it simple because I would
Yep.
really just like a nice design.
Okay, and so that's the way it is. They just have to control the drainage off the balconies. So let them figure out how to do it. It's not our job to do that. We just want to make sure for the safety reasons of the occupants that they control it.
'Cause
Okay,
it's
so I
not
have a
gonna-
motion. Yeah, I have a motion and a proper second, and we had discussion. Well, now we need to call for the vote. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Hart,
Yes.
Franz,
Yes.
Hastings,
Yes.
Mickelson,
Yes.
Carius,
Yes.
Silvers.
Yes. And that passes unanimously 6-0. So good luck with the project. We look forward to you guys coming to Broomfield and building this building, and we wish you the best.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your time and I appreciate everyone's comment very much. So we look forward to working with you guys more in the future.
Okay, thank you. Okay, special reports. Are there any special reports this evening?
Thank you, Chairman. I don't have any special reports for you this evening, but I did share the first reading memorandum regarding some changes to the development review process that City Council will be considering tomorrow evening, and that includes some potential changes to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I will follow up with all of you on Wednesday after that first reading to let you know the outcome from the first reading and when the second reading and public hearing is scheduled.
Yeah, and just for the commissioners that may not have heard that our discussion earlier, they may be discussing that like between 8:30 and 10. If you would like to listen, you can listen.
That's my best guess.
Yeah. You can listen to the entire meeting if you want. If you don't want to, you can zero in on a certain time, but that's all we can do for now.
So Anna, could you possibly, or you or Nanette, send out an email when it's like, oh, it's coming up, and we can all come join if we are taking a nap or something?
I will try to remember to do that.
Or we're riding the bike.
There you go. Yeah, I sometimes listen and walk on the treadmill at the same time. Not when I'm presenting, obviously.
I was on my bike trying to do the Dillon Point, so yeah, I get you.
I will try to remember to do that. I really will.
I'll try
Sometimes
to.
I'm a little distracted in the meeting.
Okay, good. All right. Well, that concludes our commission agenda meeting tonight and all the items. Thank you all for being here. And is there anything else to come before the commission?
Thanks all commissioners for your comments and review.
right.
I appreciate it.
If none, we will adjourn the meeting. So thank you all very much. I
Hey,
gotta jump on
Judy?
my-
You.